Here's what happened on Season 6 of Game of Thrones. We'll start with the North. The season starts with Bran, Meera, and Hodor hanging out with the three-eyed crow from Bran's dream, who is actually a man called Bloodraven, and some children of the forest in a super sweet hideout under a huge weirwood tree way north of the wall. Bran and Bloodraven can both touch weirwood trees to see things from the past, like Bran's father and his siblings when they were children at Winterfell, where Bran also spots a familiar stable boy. In a different vision, Bran and Bloodraven travel to the more recent past where Bran's father Ned and some of his friends, including Howland Reed, show up at the Tower of Joy looking for Ned's sister Lyanna. The tower is protected by two Kingsguard, one of whom is Sir Arthur Dayne.
The Sword of the Morning!
He's basically the greatest swordsman to ever live, but he's killed when Howland Reed very dishonorably stabs him in the back. But no time to fret about that too much, because we've got to see what's in that tower. Or not. There's also a vision where Bran learns that the White Walkers were actually created by the Children of the Forest. This is treated as a huge reveal, but when you stop to think about it, it doesn't have much of a bearing on the story. Overall, Bran seems to really enjoy his vision quests, probably because he can still walk in them. And he does. A lot. But he is frustrated by the limits that Bloodraven keeps putting on him, so he decides to go vision questing on his own one night, and, well, it doesn't go well. Bran is spotted vision questing by the leader of the White Walkers, and now he knows where Bran is. The White Walkers show up with a huge army of whites and attack the super secret clubhouse. Bran and Bloodraven are still in that vision of Winterfell while Meera and the Children of the Forest fight off the attack. Bran wargs into past Hodor in order to warg into present-day Hodor because don't ask questions. Bran and Meera are able to escape, though it costs the lives of Bloodraven, Summer, Leaf, who sacrifices herself to blow up a bunch of whites, and Hodor, whose past self Bran is still warged into as Meera shouts at present Hodor. Meanwhile, Jon Snow is dead. Davos and some other dudes brought his body inside and locked the door. Thorne and the other Night's Watch threaten to break down the door so that they can burn Jon's body, but then one arrives and the wildlings take over Castle Black. Davos, Ed, and Tormund convince Melisandre, who by the way is super old, to try to bring Jon back from the dead, the same way that Thoros, who also worships the Lord of Light, brought back Beric Dondarrion after the Hound nearly split him in two. And it works. Everybody's super surprised. Well, not the audience. Nerds! So like any good restless spirit back from the grave, Jon first takes care of some unfinished business. Hanging the men who killed him, passing along the responsibilities of Lord Commander to Dolorous Edd, and delivering a badass stinger as he coolly stomps off. A little ways south, Sansa and Theon have escaped from Winterfell, and are rescued from their pursuers by Brienne and Pod. Theon isn't brainwashed anymore, and now he's feeling really bad about all the bad stuff he did to Sansa's family, like killing those two boys who weren't actually part of her family, and beheading that Master-at-Arms who wasn't actually part of her family, and betraying Robb. Ha! He's part of her family. And dead, but still, amends must be made. And Theon has some funny notions of how to do that. See, instead of helping Sansa take back the Stark family home and reconnect with her family, he's gonna go back to his home and reconnect with his family. Never mind that his dad literally rebelled against the Starks twice. Charity begins at home. So Theon heads home to the Iron Islands, where as luck would have it, his father has just been murdered, and it's time for an election. Theon's in no fit condition to rule, but his sister Yara is a total badass, so he throws all his support behind her campaign. It's going great until their hopeful message about a brighter future is interrupted by a crazy self-important outsider shouting about how great things used to be and how if he's elected, he'll bring them back to the good old days of military dominance and stealing from foreigners. But I digress. After doing the Game of Thrones equivalent of a mic drop, Jon Snow apparently didn't make his grand exit so much as just walk through a random archway within the castle walls and start packing. But before he can go off to seek his fortune, his half-sister, who, spoilers, is actually probably his cousin Sansa, shows up, and the fans are treated to something that most of us probably gave up on hoping for back in Season 3. A Stark Kid reunion. And so begins the greatest love story of our time. No, don't be gross. I'm talking about Tormund Giantsbane and Brienne the Beauty. Sansa's like, we've got to take back Winterfell from Ramsay Bolton. And Jon's like, oh man, I would, but I'm just like really busy, you know? Really super busy finding direction in life. But later, when they're having dinner with Tormund and Brienne, Jon gets a letter from Ramsay telling the Starks that he has Rickon. Jon reads the letter and he's like, fine, I'll go to war with Ramsay Bolton since everybody seems to want me to so bad. Sansa's like, great, now let's go find some people who will lend us their armies. No, not you, Littlefinger, I'm still mad at you. Brienne, you ready to go on another insane quest? My uncle survived the Red Wedding and he's holding Riverrun against a siege by the Lannisters and Freys. Go ask him if he'll stop defending his well-supplied impenetrable castle and instead bring his men up north to help me take a different impenetrable castle. Yeah, that doesn't exactly go great. After a fond farewell from Tormund, Brienne does manage to talk to Blackfish, only to have him tell her exactly what she already knew. And if that weren't enough, he's shortly thereafter forced to surrender the castle and what forces he did have. Meanwhile, Jon, Sansa, and Davos have assembled an army of wildlings and Lady Mormont to take back Winterfell. Winter is coming, so they have to attack now, even though they are severely outnumbered. Sansa's pissed because Jon hasn't asked her thoughts on the matter. So he does, and she very shrewdly suggests that Jon not do what Ramsay wants him to do. Jon proceeds to do exactly what Ramsay wanted him to do, charging out to save Rickon, prompting a premature assault on Ramsay's army instead of drawing them out. Rickon dies anyway, and thus begins the Battle of the Bastards. It's a lovely spectacle featuring some great effects, excellent cinematography, and shows this type of conflict from all angles, and ultimately ends with Ramsay's face doing this, just before Jon Snow drives his fists through it repeatedly. Also, meanwhile, Bran and Meera, now on their own, are attacked by some more whites in the woods. Seems like all is lost until a mysterious figure arrives with one of those balls full of incense they use in church, except his is on fire. Who could this paragon of Deus Ex Machina possibly be? It's Uncle Benjen. You know, Benjen Stark. He was the first Ranger of the Night's Watch, Ned Stark's younger brother. He traveled from Winterfell to the Wall with Jon Snow before disappearing on a ranging north of the Wall back in the 3rd episode of the entire series. Anyway, Bran and Meera are saved by an undead but not evil Benjen Stark, who gets them to the Wall and tells Bran that he's the Three-Eyed Crow now. Bran decides to have another vision quest, and travels back to the Tower of Joy. There he sees young Ned Stark find his sister Lyanna in a bed of blood. She repeatedly asks Ned to promise her something, and he's presented with a baby. The camera pushes in on the baby's face, the music swells, and Jon Snow was once a baby! Many people have taken this as proof of a popular fan theory known as R plus L equals J, which suggests that Rhaegar Targaryen, brother of Daenerys and Viserys Targaryen, got together with Lyanna Stark, the sister of Ned and Benjen Stark, and the child they had together was Jon Snow. So Jon is actually a Targaryen and may have a claim to the Iron Throne. And as it happens, he's just been proclaimed king in the North, which isn't exactly the Iron Throne, but it's still pretty good. Moving on to King's Landing. Jaime comes back from Dorne having failed to protect another one of Cersei's children. Myrcella was killed by Ellaria Sand, who, with the Sand Snakes, executes a coup in Dorne, killing Prince Doran as well as his son Trystane. But enough about Dorne. We were talking about Jaime, and how his idiotic trip to Dorne in Season 5 with wacky Lannister sidekick Bronn totally messed up the character arc set up in the books. Sorry, I know you don't want to hear about the books. In the show, Jaime is relieved of his lifelong duties as a Kingsguard, not because he killed King Aerys, not because he attacked the Hand of the King in public, not because he failed to protect King Robert, not because he failed to protect King Joffrey, not because he sort of unknowingly aided in the murder of Tywin, a member of the royal family in Hand to King Tommen, and not because he's now let another member of the royal family get murdered right under his nose. No, it was because he said some mean things to King Tommen's new best friend, the High Sparrow. And also because he marched his army to the Steps of the Sept. So Jaime's no longer a member of the Kingsguard, and he's headed to the Riverlands to take Riverrun from the Blackfish, and he's bringing that wacky sidekick Bronn along with him. Meanwhile, Cersei has been seriously outplayed by the High Sparrow. He's managed to basically take King Tommen, Queen Marjorie Tyrell, and Loras Tyrell all hostage, fill King's Landing with an occupying army in the Faith Militant, and rally the common people behind his cause. Cersei, on the other hand, mainly has her personal bodyguard, whose special skills involve smashing people's heads against walls and ripping other people's heads clean off their bodies. Of course, after witnessing these special skills firsthand, the Faith convinces King Tommen to outlaw trial by combat. Cersei was banking on her killing machine winning her trial by combat, but now she's forced to go with her plan B. Blowing everyone the hell up. The explosion kills the High Sparrow, Cersei's cousin Lancel, Queen Marjorie, her brother Loras, their father, Mace Tyrell, and pretty much all of the Faith Militant. Oh, and it kills one more person. King Tommen. Poor guy. It's the most confident decision he'd ever made as king. So now Jaime returns to see that his sister's done nearly exactly what he sacrificed his personal honor to prevent all those years ago, and she now sits on the Iron Throne with no children and probably no tether to reality at all. Next up, the Riverlands, where Jaime and Brienne are briefly reunited and then have to say farewell. Also in the Riverlands, the Hound is alive. He's made friends with a Septon named Brother Ray, who's got a real cool teacher just trying to shoot straight with you man vibe. The Hound is trying to walk a nonviolent path while helping some commoners build a church, but then some a-holes who say they're with the Brotherhood without banners come and kill Brother Ray and his flock, so it's back to a life of violence for the Hound. And oh, such violence! He kills some people to find out where the guys he's really after went, only to discover that they've already been captured by the real Brotherhood without banners. They negotiate who gets to kill these guys, and then they invite him to join them on their way to the Wall, to join the real fight. Across the narrow sea in the city of Braavos, Arya is still training at the House of Black and White because apparently getting the shit kicked out of you on a routine basis is an essential step to being able to magically change your face. And Arya is doing such a wonderful job of getting the shit kicked out of her that she's given a promotion and an assignment to kill an actress playing Cersei, and you know what? We don't need to get into it. Arya doesn't go through with it, books passage back to Westeros, gets stabbed by the waif, is patched up by the actress, who's then killed by the waif, and then the waif chases Arya through the streets like a damn Terminator. Arya lures her into the dark where she cuts the waif's face off with needle. She gives it to Jaqen, who's like, now a girl is truly no one, which doesn't make sense, and Arya's like, you wish, tuna fish, I'm Arya Stark, and I'm gonna go avenge some of my murdered family members. And she does. Over in Meereen and also a little bit in the Dothraki Sea, after riding away on Drogon near the end of Season 5, Dany is captured by a Khalasar in the Dothraki Sea and taken to Vaes Dothrak to join the other wives of dead Khals. Daario and Jorah manage to track her there, but she's Daenerys G.D. Targaryen, she doesn't need rescuing. She gathers all the Khals together in the Great Hall, and when they don't agree to join her cause, she sets the place on fire and walks out unscathed. With all the Khals dead, the Khalasars now follow Daenerys. Now that she's safe, Jorah reveals his grayscale to Dany, who commands him to find a cure and return to her service once he has. Meanwhile, with Daenerys gone, Tyrion is ruling Meereen in her name, with the help of Grey Worm, Missandei, and Varys. Tyrion's actually really busy this season. He unchains the 2 dragons that Dany had chained under the pyramids, he strikes a diplomatic agreement with the Wise Masters who have retaken Yunkai and Astapor, and he asks the Red Priestess of R'hllor to preach in the streets on Dany's behalf. Things are looking pretty good in Meereen, so Varys goes undercover on a super secret mission, and Tyrion tries to get Grey Worm and Missandei to loosen up for once. But just as they do, the Masters return to break their pact and attack Meereen. And that's also when Dany gets back. They decide to renegotiate the treaty that the Masters just broke. They end up getting pretty favorable results thanks to their lead negotiator being a dragon and all. They kill 2 of the Masters, and Daario and the Dothraki ride down some Sons of the Harpy, while Daenerys and her dragons burn one of the ships and take control of the rest. After the battle, Daenerys is approached by Yara and Theon Greyjoy. There's some fun banter and a decidedly pro-badass ladies vibe, and they ultimately agree that the Greyjoys will help Daenerys take back Westeros, and in exchange, Yara will rule the Iron Islands as queen. Meanwhile in Dorne, sorry, I'll be quick, I promise. Lady Olenna meets with Ellaria Sand and the Sand Snakes about forming an alliance against the Lannisters, but not just with them. See, Varys' super secret mission was to recruit great houses of Westeros to Dany's cause. So now that she has an army of Unsullied, the Masters' fleet of ships, Theon and Yara's fleet of ships, and basically every Dothraki in existence, along with 3 grown dragons, and an alliance with Dorne and the Reach, it's time to break up with her sellsword boyfriend, leave him in charge of keeping the shaky at best peace while the people choose new leaders, and head on home to Westeros.